is a good time to start the seminar. I would like to greeting to the audience again, and hello and welcome, and thank you all for joining today's special seminar on knowledge management, focusing on how does the multidisciplinary team coordinate its effort before dealing and post-recovery disaster, especially in response to an earthquake. As we know, on 28 March 2024, a major earthquake with a magnitude of 7.7 on the Richter at 12:50 in Myanmar. The earthquake was felt in several areas, including Thailand. Although Bangkok is located more than 1,000 kilometers from the epicenter, the tremor were strong enough to cause a 33-story unfinished high-rise building under construction to collapse. Earthquakes are rarely felt in Bangkok metropolitan area and other cities in Thailand, home to than 17 million people, many of whom live in high-rise apartments. After the earthquake, Thai citizens were frightened and concerned about future earthquake. Therefore, it is essential for us to be aware of and prepare for future earthquake or other serious disaster. This is why the Faculty of Nursing at Thaksin University is hosting today's knowledge management event.
This seminar is proudly organized by the Faculty of Nursing at Thaksin University. We are delighted to welcome all of you, students, faculty members, and members of the public who have enjoyed us today. At this time, I would like to introduce the team who will be facilitating today's session. Please allow me to begin by introducing our Dean, Assistant Professor Dr. Hatairat Sengchan, followed by our moderators, Assistant Professor Dr. Chandrapat Khruakel Denki, Mr. Punnapat Chamnanpok, and I, Mr. Atipong Munino, all of whom are esteemed lecturers in our faculty. Before we begin, I would like to invite our Dean of the Faculty of Nursing, Assistant Professor Dr. Hatairat Sengchan, to deliver the opening of this seminar.
Thank you อาทิพงศ์ก็สวัสดีผู้เข้าร่วมทุกท่านนะคะ Good evening distinguished guests, colleagues and fellow researchers. My name is Assistant Professor Dr. Hatairat Sengchan, the Dean of Faculty of Nursing, Thaksin University. We are in southern of Thailand, and I'm honored to be here today, hosting knowledge management on proactive care service to support communities before, during, and after earthquake. On behalf of the Faculty of Nursing, Thaksin University, I extend my gratitude to Dr. Langen and all of you for being today. I hope the knowledge shared will help our Thai citizens better prepare for future earthquake or other disasters and recovery from the recent one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hatairat, for your warm welcome.
Now, it is an honor to introduce our distinguished guest speaker today, Professor Emeritus Dr. Joanne Langen. I also have the personal honor of having been mentored by Dr. Langen during my PhD journey, making today even more special. Dr. Langen is a professor emeritus at St. Louis University from USA. She earned a Bachelor of Education and Nursing and completed her Master and PhD in Nursing Administration from George Mason University. Dr. Langen is an executive board member of International Council of Nursing on Disaster Preparedness from the USA. She is an internationally known expert in disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. She has published several books on disaster management and is the PI of research on disaster management. Dr. Langen also served as the coordinator of disaster preparedness certificate program. Today, Dr. Langen will share insight on disaster management with a specific focus on earthquakes. Please join me in welcome Dr. Joanne Langen.
It's morning for me, but I say good evening to all of you and welcome. And before I begin, I just want to express my sympathy to all of you and those who you might know who were greatly affected by the earthquake that you experienced most recently. Please know that in general, people in the United States are aware and thinking about all of you and praying that people will be found and safely and people can be reunited. That is our hope. These are the topics that I'll be covering today, and I'll go through them one by one. Next slide, please. So communication is probably the most important aspect in disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. People who have experienced an earthquake need to know what the number of deceased persons might be, known or unknown, those who have been injured, and those who are displaced, meaning they may have been visiting in an area that experienced the earthquake or the aftermath. And people need to know and communicate what the location is of these individuals. The people, we know that there is much damage to property, but the people are the most important aspect in the disaster recovery. The basic needs of food and water have to be considered after an event such as this. That's what we need to survive. So not only do the victims or the survivors need access to food and clean water, but also those who are in the response efforts, the first responders, and those who work with the survivors need to be taken care of as well. Decontamination is really an important aspect of recovery because we don't know what kind of agents that people who have been exposed to during the earthquake and the aftermath, as power lines, gas, and fuel are all part of the destruction, and people can be exposed to that. So next, who is in charge of the rescue effort? We know that all disaster rescue begins on the local level, those who are closest to the debris and the buildings that have collapsed. So who's in charge? And then those people on the local level, to whom do they report? Who is in charge? You have local leaders and responders, but you have countrywide leaders who need to know the extent of the damage and who is managing the rescue effort. Next slide, please. These types of injuries that I'm going to list here happen because of the earthquake. There are explosions that happen because of the ruptured gas and those power lines, fuel. Extreme heat is an issue. It could result in some flooding from water main breaks. There are chemicals and hazardous materials in the buildings that have collapsed. Home fires become a concern, and home safety if the buildings, even homes, are unstable. Next slide. So this is a list of the possible injuries that the healthcare providers might need to be prepared to treat. So deaths and injuries from the fires near a large water body, you could have tsunamis, lots of flooding. The collapse of walls of the buildings, the glass, falling objects because the ground is shaking, so things begin to fall off the walls. Within the human body, respiratory distress, gastrointestinal symptoms, and vector-borne diseases. All of the processes that we have in place to control vector-borne diseases, such as mosquitoes or other types of animals, may not be held in check during a catastrophe like an earthquake. And of course, wound and skin infections are a malady that people who have experienced these earthquakes might suffer. Next slide. So the most common injuries that you'll see from the aftermath of an earthquake would be fractures and dislocations, wound infections where the skin integrity is broken and the noxious agents come in through airborne contact or water, contaminated water, head, face, and brain injuries, and of course, crush injuries if the building has collapsed on individuals. Then the most common related surgical procedures would be wound debridement and skin grafting, a treatment for the orthopedic trauma that individuals might suffer, and unfortunately, surgical amputation for those extremities that might have been caught under very heavy concrete or other objects, and there's no circulation to those extremities, and then they might have cause to amputate those extremities to save the life of these people. Next slide. So we can't underestimate the amount of mental health aspects of these tragedies, whether people are very directly involved in the collapse of these buildings or remotely involved or know someone who is involved. It does take a toll on our mental health. So the active listening, sometimes people don't have the ability to be therapeutic, but if they simply listen to individuals who are hurting as a result of these events. Offering self. Sometimes we don't need to say anything, but it's just to reassure people, I am with you. I hear you, and I will be with you until someone else can take my place. But just the comfort of being there for individuals is very powerful. Referral to services. If people are suffering from depression, anxiety, or whatever the aftermath might be, sometimes individual presence is very good, but they might need to be referred to other services to help them cope in the long run. For healthcare providers and first responders, it's controversial whether we make debriefings mandatory or not, but through my research with disaster survivors, I have found that the healthcare workers say the debriefings need to be mandatory. Whether people speak or not, it's okay. They may just be in the room with other survivors or healthcare providers. They can listen to people's experiences and perhaps relate to what they're experiencing and feel like, okay, that's what I'm feeling too. So I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one feeling this. There's some comfort in that. Use of assistive devices, especially with the amputations or surgeries that people might go through, they may have never had to use an assistive device. So correct teaching of the use of assistive devices is very important. Accessibility has to do with getting around at home, at work, at school, or at play. Are those buildings or areas accessible to individuals who may have suffered loss of mobility? Transportation, very important. It could be that individuals are not able to drive themselves, but they need to have access to transportation that is accessible to them to get them to needed services. Next slide, please. So the multidisciplinary approach is so very important. You have healthcare providers, the emergency responders who go right into the epicenter where it happened and beyond. Disaster managers, again, who is in charge? Someone or a group need to be in charge, and they need to delegate duties to others who are knowledgeable and to direct volunteers who may mean well, but if they don't know how to move people appropriately or the heavy debris, they might get injured themselves. So disaster managers are very important. And if your area doesn't have people who do this, they need to get the education to know what the proper steps are. For example, we don't want nurses to run into a burning building to rescue people. We want those buildings to be safe and secure before any kind of nurse or healthcare provider would help. In fact, the best way is that the fire and hazardous materials officials are in there first, and they secure the area, they make it safe, get the survivors out to an area where the healthcare providers can provide the care that is needed. And all of these individuals, again, need to communicate. Who is where, the status of the buildings, are they safe or not, and the status of the individuals. And then that gets into triage, because we know triage happens at the site of the event and then out in other safe areas. And people's status or their condition can change very rapidly in a short period of time. So the communication is really important. Next slide, please. So the lessons we've learned is ideally prepare before the earthquake. Do the teaching that needs to be done by telling all citizens you need to have an emergency plan. How are you going to protect your home? And we have drop, cover, and hold on. When an earthquake is anticipated or you're going through it, you need to get low. You have to get something sturdy over the top of you and then hold on, because the shaking is very frightening. And then things start to drop off the walls or from the ceiling. So drop, cover, and hold on. Avoiding floodwaters because they contain chemicals, sewage, and other debris, and that's very dangerous to individuals. If the earthquake has happened and there is a lot of dust and debris, people need to know to cover their nose and mouth with some material. And if they are caught in an area they can't get out, a whistle is something that is recommended that they have with them, because they don't want them to continue to scream for help. If they have something like a whistle in, well, we say have a go bag ready. That would have very close to you. If you start to feel the tremors, have that bag with first aid kit, with the whistle. Sometimes they tell people, if you don't have the whistle, to bang on any kind of pipes that are around you or materials around you to alert others to where you are. So to stay safe during the earthquake, stay inside, avoid doorways. If you are in bed, turn your face down, cover your head and neck with a pillow. If you're in a car, pull over, stop, set the parking brake. If you are outside, move to an open area away from buildings, trees, and power lines. And again, drop and cover to protect yourself from flying debris. Next slide, please. Again, lessons we learned: create that emergency plan. You need to have a family emergency communications plan. Where will you meet if you are separated? The best plan is to have an individual or family member outside of your immediate area that everyone would get in touch with to say, I'm okay. The tremor has stopped and I'm okay. We have these individuals with us. It's just someone outside of the area, and typically the landlines will not be effective, but cell phones with text messages with disasters typically still work as a means of communication. Practice. Every family member and co-worker needs to be part of the practice of the emergency plan. Typically in acute care hospitals, in orientation, we teach the new nurses, new healthcare providers, what to do in case of a fire. Well, if you know that your area is prone to any kind of disaster, that emergency plan needs to be created and practiced. We also know that videos as part of education are very important, but the best learning occurs when people have their hands-on equipment and they actually move through an evacuation exercise. And then there should be a designated area where people meet outside of the building, if that's the best place to go, to kind of congregate, get together, and take an inventory of who is there and maybe who did not get out. Securing heavy items, very important, with items such as bookcases, refrigerators, wall hanging objects. They need to be securely fastened to the walls if that's something that you're going to have in your residence, your workplaces, and otherwise, because when those tremors start, those heavy items start to shake, and that falls on people, and that creates a lot of injury. The essential supplies that need to be thought about and have on hand are fire extinguishers, first aid kits, battery-powered radios, flashlights, and extra batteries. People need to learn how to turn off gas, water, and electricity. Then for the cleanup, this is where a lot of MIs, heart attacks happen because people get very anxious and want to get their homes and places of work cleaned up, but they have to be doing this incrementally and looking out for each other. So protective clothing needs to be worn if you're going to be involved in the cleanup. Long sleeve shirts, long pants, sturdy work gloves, sturdy closed-toed shoes, and those thick-soled shoes because of the debris and glass shards that will be all around. Do not go into buildings with indoor water leaks or mold growth that you can smell. And children should never be part of a disaster cleanup effort. Keep the children away from the debris and those damaged areas. Next slide, please. So the final tips and takeaways are: take care of yourselves first so that you can take care of others. My students have heard that many, many times, because if you are not safe yourself, there's no way you can help others. When I studied disaster preparedness, one of the experts told me that for every nurse who is injured or goes down, there are probably 50 patients who cannot be helped if the nurse or the healthcare provider is injured. Use the resources that you have at hand. Very likely with mass casualty events, you will run out of your own resources, so that there needs to be a collaboration with others who might have available resources to share with you. Delegate when possible. A leader cannot do all of the work. A good leader will delegate different activities to people who are around them and guide them in the effort. It's incremental progress. We would all like to clean up very quickly, get back into those buildings that have been damaged, but it's incremental. It's a little bit at a time, and that's where you celebrate the small wins. For instance, you might have a major road that is cleared. People's roads near their homes might take much longer to clear that path, but the small win would be a major road that's cleared. You need to develop immediate goals. What do we need immediately for the safety of our citizens? And then the long-term goals, of course, would be rebuilding, whether it's a home, a school, a church, whatever is meaningful to people, that would be a long-term goal. Contracts. You need to have contracts or agreements with different vendors for goods, services, and personnel. When we have had nursing shortages, for instance, in the United States, we have contracts with other countries for nurses who can travel and work in the United States to help take care of our citizens. Many services need to have contracts, and again, it may not be with your very local vendors, but the services might need to be provided for people even many, we say miles, maybe kilometers away. And goods, basic goods of food, water, clothing, linens, those kinds of things that the hospitals and healthcare agencies need on a daily basis. There may be a need to set up something like tents as temporary shelters. There might be the building of temporary hospitals to be able to care for the survivors. There might be other shelters. Maybe if a school or a church is still standing, they may be able to use those spaces as shelters for citizens. But again, the shelters and the availability need to be communicated to the citizens. This is a place you can come. And don't forget people's pets and animals. They need to know which shelters would accept their pets, because some people do not evacuate from an area if they don't think their pets will be safe. They don't even think about themselves. They think, if my pet is going to be left alone, I'm not leaving. So there are some shelters that would be equipped to take care of animals as well. And then agricultural animals, horses, zoos, other things like that. I mean, it's just so hard to fathom or believe, but animals and other people's property and values, it may be further down the concern, but people do become anxious and they worry about the other types of things that they own about being taken care of. Next slide, please. These are some of the resources where you can look for education to share with nurses, healthcare providers, teachers, schools, clergy, people in the churches, to try to get prepared. And then ready.gov, READY.gov is an excellent U.S. source for information and teaching materials. Jan Papat mentioned the ICN that I'm a member in, is the International Council of Nurses, has an excellent website, and they list the core competencies in disaster nursing. And there are different levels of nurses and supervisory nurses they list the competencies that even new nurses need to know. And that's an excellent source to get in there and look at what the competencies are that are expected of nurses. Next slide. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation, and I would be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Lincoln, for insight and knowledge to give to us. This is good time for the audience to ask Dr. Lincoln. Please welcome. We welcome for your question, please. If you have a question, you can turn on the camera and unmute your microphone.
And my email was on that last slide too. So if you come up with a question later when we are finished, I would be happy to email my response back to you.
Yes, okay. Start with my question first. So because of we are in the aging society, so I would like to know that how we prepare the elder who live alone in the house. Because right now, several aging people maybe have to live alone.
So do I understand that the question has to do with people living alone or older adults at home alone?
Older
Older
adults?
live alone.
adult, yeah.
Elderly people who live alone, how do we prepare the elderly adult who live alone?
And it's so difficult if you do not know that the disaster is going to happen. If you know ahead of time that the disaster is going to happen, it would be have family members, get those individuals to live with them, move them to your home of residence, or the community, if they have a shelter available, move those individuals to a shelter. Sometimes in the United States, we have long-term care facilities for older adults. And sometimes they might have extra beds and they can take in more citizens into those buildings or agencies to house them and keep them safe.
And so for our faculty of nursing, we have the clinic to take care of the people. So we set up our place for the shelter if there are some event of disaster too. And we have to set up everything prepared for this, any disaster.
The nurses are very important to be in the shelters to assist with the care.
Any questions from the audience? Okay.
It looks like there could be two in the chat.
Okay, they have a question in Thai languages, and I will try to interpret the questions. The questions is like, so many people, they are still have a panic from the earthquake. And do you have any suggestions for the people or the wisdom who have the experience of the earthquake and still panic? And not only the victims who are in the earthquake situation, and maybe many Thai citizens who have still panic about this earthquake just recently happened. Do you have any suggestions for the people who panic from this event?
So that's a quite normal response to an abnormal event. So people who are feeling that panic or anxiety need to be reassured that that is a perfectly legitimate and expected reaction when something so tragic happens. They need to be listened to, and healthcare professionals need to offer themselves and listen, active listening, and reassuring that they will be with them. We cannot reassure people that this will never happen again. That's false hope. But being with them and continuing to let them verbalize what they're feeling is therapeutic. Just having a presence with them and make sure that they are able to talk and discuss what they're feeling. Now, over time, as things stabilize, their anxiety or their panic should lessen. But if it does not, then we need to offer referrals to healthcare, psych, mental health, referrals to those professionals to help them with that anxiety or that panic that they may continue to experience over a long period of time.
I will try to translate in Thai นะคะดูเหมือนว่าอาจารย์จะแนะนำให้เหมือนกับมีคนอยู่ด้วยกับผู้ประสบภัยจากเหตุการณ์แผ่นดินไหวนะคะได้ให้เขาได้พูดได้ระบายความรู้สึกที่เกิดขึ้นแล้วถ้าเราคิดพิจารณาว่าต้องการส่งต่อไปรักษานะคะก็แนะนำให้ส่งต่อไปรักษาได้เลยอะค่ะ I have a question. What is the best approach to initiate a preparedness course or training program?
You need to have subject matter experts to help create this. But through a grant that Dr. Karen Moore and I got, we created modules that are free. And I can send you the access to those modules. And they're directly related to those International Council of Nursing competencies that nurses need to know. There are many free educational seminars or modules online, especially through FEMA.gov, FEMA.gov. The Federal Emergency Management Agency has many courses. So you can draw from that. In my own disaster preparedness course, I'm using my textbook to guide our nursing students through the concepts that are necessary for their professional roles as nurses. So online, there are just any number. The American Red Cross, possibly the Crescent Red Cross would also have free modules for educators to use in their classes to start courses such as that.
Thank you for your answer.
Hello.
You give me some idea how to develop my proposal right now.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I just would like to know the earthquake to physical in Bangkok that we face. This is the first time of us. If you or anyone saw the TV, I saw many nurses play two roles at that time. First, they play role as a nurse that need to protect their patient. Another one, they were a victim also. So now I would like to know how to manage themselves or manage myself during the earthquake as a nurse, as victim, like that.
That is really an important point to discuss. The nurses or healthcare providers who are near the epicenter or even the aftershock areas, yes, you are victims as well because you are experiencing it. So it becomes an ethical issue. What is the duty to yourself and what is the duty to your patients? And that's very important to have that discussion with the hospital administrators, the School of Nursing administrators, wherever people work. What is the obligation as a nurse? Do you stay in that hospital, maybe even that has been damaged? or do you help with the evacuation efforts? And what is your role? You really need to know what the expectations are of your employer. So typically here in the United States, people are offered grace. That means if they are there during the disaster, they stay until someone else can come in. They sleep at the hospital and they set up cots and whatever for first responders even. They give them food and water until someone else can come in. And that's where the contracts and agreements come in with other hospital systems, other healthcare provider systems, that if we have a disaster at our area, we would hope that you would allow us to have some of your healthcare providers come in to take our place. And consequently, if you have a disaster, maybe some of our healthcare providers could come and offer a little relief to your employees. When it comes to a school of nursing, it's very common that you close for the semester, or at least part of the semester, until people can get their own homes in order, get reunited with family members. The students need to get reunited with their parents or other loved ones, because even the faculty, you cannot think about teaching students and doing your job when your own home is damaged or you're concerned about the safety of your loved ones. So those agreements, and we have disaster medical assistance teams. It's called DMAT, D-M-A-T, where nurses and healthcare providers are taught and prepared to deploy to other areas in their state or their area for maybe a maximum of 2 weeks. Because we've learned through research that about 2 weeks is as much as anyone can be deployed and do that intensive care that they need to do in a disaster area, to where they need to go back home and be relieved by a fresher team that goes in to help. So it's a lot of communication and collaboration among agencies to help each other out, because when it's mass casualty, so many people are affected, and we need to reach out for help from others to help us get through day to day. And the recovery might be weeks to months to years. And some nurses, for instance, who are directly affected by a disaster, maybe even leave. They're not able, they have PTSD symptoms, and they're not able to come back to work for a period of time. So it just depends on how greatly you're affected. And know too that any kind of rumbling or tremor, however slight, is going to trigger that memory of a major disaster, and it may render people ineffective for a time because they're so frightened, and that panic just comes back. So very difficult, but people through their faith and family and counselors and psych mental health support people to say, we understand, and maybe you should take some time off and then come back to work when you're feeling better.
Okay, thank you, Professor. You answer me more questions. Okay, really clear.
You're welcome.
May I ask something?
Go ahead, please.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm Dr. Psu.Km from Faculty of Law, Thaksin University. I like to ask the professor, in your own opinion, because due to the, basically, once we have earthquake, flooding, or sort of this, they may have fall upon the act of God's cross. So it really hard to find anyone who will take full responsibility of the earthquake questions. And in your own opinion, do you think that anyone can take mainly responsibility for the situation like this. For example, the government or Ministry of Natural Resource, they didn't warn any people soon enough or will take full loss in the situation. Thank you very much.
Well, from my own experience, we have emergency managers who have gone to school and they have learned how to manage situations. And we have the incident command system. And they set that up when there's threat of a natural disaster, terrorism, something like that. They set up, it's like a command base with individuals who are knowledgeable with disaster response. Now, our military are very well prepared for disaster response and recovery. And sometimes you need the military and that kind of show of force, because we know in damaged areas, some people take advantage of that and they start looting and stealing from people's homes and businesses when there's so much chaos. You might need the military to come in just for some control of individuals. And it's very sad when people take advantage of a disaster to do things like that. The other thing is that if you have something like a biological outbreak, we know that the medicines and with, say, if it's a nerve agent, those antidotes become very valuable. And whether people are exposed or not, they might want to get their hands on those few resources. So the military really helps with protecting those resources and the distribution, because immediately after an event, there may not be enough resources for the need of a population. So my suggestion is civilians need to work with the military in response and recovery to have control of the situation and to help citizens in the recovery. Is that what you were looking for? Did that answer your question?
Thank you very much, Professor.
Okay, I have a question in Thai and I will try to interpret in English, but I'm not sure is correct or not. If the audience who asked this question is not clear, just let me know, okay? They asked about how do we practice to be prepared for earthquake.
So remember that stop, drop, and cover. So even in schools, the school children can be taught how to get down and get under the school desks. That's a practice. At home, people need to practice looking around the homes at heavy bookcases and those refrigerators, things that I mentioned, not only for an earthquake, but even if you have young children who like to climb, those bookcases and heavy things need to be secured to the wall so that if those children decide they want to climb on them, they're not going to fall down. Heavy dressers where you store clothing, things like that. So the practice is in the preparation. So look around the homes, classrooms, school buildings, libraries, those heavy things need to be secured somehow. And then the practice of family members get together, who would we call who is out of the area that all of us can call and say, we're okay. There needs to be an assembly area. If you need to get out of the building, where would be a safe assembly area away from other buildings and trees and things that could fall on you? And you, just like you evacuate with a fire, with this earthquake, if you need to get out of that shaking building away from trees and other buildings, you get people to walk out of that building. And that could be a very huge effort if it's a multi-level building. But that is the only way people will get the feel of what that's like. No elevators will be working. They have to be on the stairs and move quickly. And again, that leadership is so important. there should be at least a designated person on every floor of the building to say, follow me. Because with the shaking and if there's debris falling and it's dusty, people have to get low and get down those stairwells very quickly. And hopefully the emergency exits will light up so that people can see that's a way to get out. And teach people, think about another way to get out of your school, church, movie theaters, other than the way you came in. Because we know that people typically go out the way that they came in. They have to find another way out other than the way they came in. Because if everybody goes the same way, there's a stampede and people get crushed because they haven't thought about another way to get out. At our movie theaters, there's people come in from the back, but there's another exit that's up by the movie screen. And I tell all the students, go out that way. And when you get that door open, you call to people and say, come this way, follow me. Because somebody needs to take charge and give clear commands, come this way, instead of all going out the same door and getting crushed. So the practice is important. We have tabletop exercises. If you can't do a functional exercise where people actually move around, you do a tabletop and talk through, if this would happen, what would we do? Who would be in charge? And we know in the hospital setting, some of these emergencies happen on the weekends or during the night when we have less staff. People on the night shift or on the weekends, they need to know what to do. Somebody has to step up and take charge.
Thank you. It look like the commander or the leader in this situation in charge is very important, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, that's why we have to practice and fight to practice for the earthquake, especially on the commander, on the leadership for the earthquake situation. And I have another question from the Zoom panel. The question is, in terms of city, how should we organize area for earthquake disaster, such as suburb area, urban area? How do we organize this area? Right now, it's like we talk about in the city, but what about the area, like a suburb and urban area? How do we organize it?
Right. Well, every area needs to be considered and they need to know what to do. The good news is typically in the suburban and the rural areas, there are less high-rise buildings. So the suburban and the rural areas could actually be safer areas. If you know that a disaster is coming, you want to get away, an earthquake, you want to get away from those high-rise buildings and out to a clear open field away from the trees or those buildings. So actually the suburban and the rural areas would be probably safer in the case of an earthquake. Now, if there are the oceanic waves and a tsunami is coming in, then you want to get way up to higher, away from the coast and way up to higher ground in the case of a tsunami. And sometimes those waters come so fast, it's very difficult. So if there's any kind of a warning system in your country, and like a loudspeaker or how you get messages out over TV, radio, we have Citizens Band radio, any way to get information out to people. It's so important if you have the time to get people to evacuate safely. And the messages have to tell people where to go, what direction to go. When we have the hurricanes on the Gulf Coast of the United States, all of the highways that would be coming south open up and all lanes go north to get away from the coast. So transportation is an important part of evacuation, as we know.
Thank you. And it looks like we have to study about the Thai situation because between American and Thai, it's very different for the like a geographics. That's why we have to learn
Yes.
about our geographic, and we have to organize the listening span is suitable for Thai citizens. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I would certainly have you get in touch with your government and your military leaders to ask them what is already in place. What should we know? Because now we've had this tragic event. And if you're feeling unprepared and still scared, find out what is already in place and what your part might be in that. And I'm sure that they would welcome feedback about what went well and what could be improved. And if they have education or people to come around to your communities to teach them, that would be very valuable.
Okay, it looks like we have to start with the military first, right?
It
Government,
depends
yeah,
on
we have
your
to reach
country,
out.
right?
Yeah, we have to reach out to the government and the military, and we have to be like the center for teaching and preparing for the disaster, like an earthquake. Okay, I will try to include all the military to our research center. Yeah.
And the military individuals have liaisons or people who are in charge of educating communities. So they would probably put you in charge or in touch with someone who's in charge of community outreach about the correct actions to take.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Do you have any question from the audience?
Yeah, I have the question.
Please go ahead.
Okay. อาจารย์พรทิพย์สารีโส I'm come from แม่ฟ้าหลวง University and good morning to Dr. Joanne from United States St. Louis นะคะ and good evening for audience. I discussed with my colleague and researcher in other faculty is in my university to prepare or plan for community. We have the course for training the school or university annually, but I concern about the elderly who living in rural community who have limitation to access the data or news or the resources. And I want to know about the difference of guideline or manual for elderly from other age. And second, what is the special issue for elderly to prepare or course to training which we or provider or healthcare provider be aware for them. Thank you.
Okay. To make sure that I understand is how to prepare older adults or elderly when they are housed in a big building, how to get them out, how to evacuate them. Did I understand correctly?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So we know that when there is a disaster, typically you cannot use elevators. So if they are using assistive devices or wheelchairs, people need to know how to carry them down the stairs. And we have what's called med sleds, MEDSLEDS, med sleds. And those are they're like stretchers, but they put
Excuse me
individuals.
Again, please. MEDS.
Med sleds, MEDSLEDS, med sleds.
Okay. Thank you.
And the individuals are put onto these, they're like stretchers, but they cross their arms and they get strapped in so that they feel secure. And then it takes at least 2 people to carry them down. And it's kind of a slow process, but that is one way to get them down. We can use blankets and maybe 4 people carrying them on blankets, but people who are immobile, they need to be carried down in some way. Some people are able, if it's not too high in the building, to take the wheelchair and go backwards down a few stairs to get them out safely. But it's difficult, and if you need to do a very fast evacuation, say for instance, if it's a fire, you need to get them to another part of the building. Maybe it's not always vertical, sometimes horizontal. Get them to a different part of the building until more people can come in. It's also important to work with the fire department, first responders, because they need to come to your buildings where these older adults are, or any people even in their homes. They need to know if there's an emergency in your community where these people are located who need assistance with evacuation. Because if they don't know that their help is needed, they wouldn't know to come to your home and help get people out.
Thank you, Dr. Lincoln. And we have one last question. They asked in Thai languages, and I try to interpret in English again. It looked like very difficult question. They asked about the United States situations. They want to know how Americans have the federal law or state law to control how build the tall buildings.
State laws about tall buildings?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, we have building codes. Older buildings probably are not as stable as the newer buildings that are up to more current codes, and they're more stable. But depending upon the situation, even in the Midwest, we have threat of earthquake, and it's not very common, but there's still a threat. So people who live and work in high-rise buildings need to be aware of the evacuation plans. Even if you are on vacation and you go to a hotel, anywhere, you need to know, look where those stairwells are to get out, because again, the elevators may not be working, or there'll be too many people trying to get to an elevator. You're not going to fit anyway. So you need to look where those exits are. And, people, if they're on vacation, they want to have fun, but safety is number one. And they need to know where those stairwells are. But again, we have building codes and for the structures that are being built. But if there's something very severe, like an earthquake, there will be damage.
Thank you. เหมือนกับว่ามันแล้วแต่รัฐในการควบคุมกฎหมายแต่ยังไงอาจารย์ก็อยากให้เราดูเกี่ยวกับความปลอดภัยหรือศึกษากฎหมายหรือการเอาตัวรอดออกจากตึกในแต่ละรัฐที่เราไปท่องเที่ยวกันนะคะที่เรา take vacation ค่ะokay. Before I want to pass this section to Mr. Punapat to give a shortly conclusion, and I have a video that in Thai languages that you mentioned about drop cover and hold on. It's just public on the social media last Friday. And before we show the video, and I will pass this to Mr. Punapat to give a shortly conclusion in Thai languages.
ขอบคุณครับก็ในส่วนของขออนุญาตสรุปประเด็นต่างๆที่ท่านโปรเฟสเซอร์ได้นำเสนอมาและร่วมกับคำถามของแต่ละท่านนะครับก็ใน6ประเด็นสำคัญเลยอันดับแรกก็คือเรื่องของการสื่อสารในสถานการณ์ที่เป็นเกี่ยวกับภัยพิบัตินะครับหรือว่า communication situation ตรงนี้ก็คือว่าสิ่งสำคัญเลยก็คือเรื่องของอาจจะเป็นการแจ้งเตือนภัยล่วงหน้าซึ่งมันจะมีบทบาทสำคัญเลยในการที่ป้องกันเรื่องของความสูญเสียได้แล้วก็ในส่วนของกรณีที่เกิดสถานการณ์ฉุกเฉินเนี่ยการสื่อสารที่ชัดเจนแล้วก็ที่ ลดความสับสนตรงเนี้ยก็จะเป็นสิ่งที่สำคัญมากนะครับแต่ว่าอุปสรรคต่างๆที่อาจจะเกิดขึ้นได้ในระหว่างการสื่อสารก็อาจจะเป็นเรื่องของสัญญาณที่ขัดข้องถ้าเราใช้มือถือนะครับก็อาจจะเปลี่ยนเป็นวิทยุหรือไม่ก็เสียงตามสายแล้วก็การสื่อสารเนี่ยอาจจะทำให้เกิดข้อมูลที่ผิดพลาดได้นะครับก็ในประเด็นที่2จะเป็นเกี่ยวกับเรื่องของการดูแลทางการแพทย์สำหรับผู้รอดชีวิตนะครับอาจจะเป็น medical care to survival ก็คือสิ่งสำคัญเลยในการเข้าซีนก็คือเรื่องของการจัดลำดับความรุนแรงของผู้บาดเจ็บนะครับเพื่อที่จะช่วยในเรื่องของทรัพยากรที่ใช้ได้อย่างเหมาะสมด้วยแล้วก็อาจจะมีการประสานงานไปยังโรงพยาบาลหลักเพื่อที่จะช่วยดูแลในคนที่บาดเจ็บในรุนแรงนะครับแล้วก็ความต้องการต่างๆที่อาจจะเข้าไปซัพพอร์ตอย่างเช่นเรื่องของยาเวชภัณฑ์แล้วก็เรื่องของอาหารรวมไปถึงการส่งต่อผู้ป่วยนะครับในส่วนของประเด็นที่3จะเป็นการซัพพอร์ตทางด้านจิตใจก็คือการช่วยเหลือเบื้องต้นนะครับเพื่อลดผลกระทบทางด้านอารมณ์ได้แล้วก็มีการให้คำปรึกษาในระยะยาวรวมไปถึงถ้ากรณีที่ปรึกษาแล้วอาจจะมีผลกระทบอยู่ก็อาจจะเป็นการส่งต่อเข้ารับการรักษานะครับในโรงพยาบาลที่มีศักยภาพแล้วก็ต่อไปเป็นเรื่องของการฟื้นฟูไม่ใช่ว่าจะเป็นการฟื้นฟูทางด้านร่างกายการฟื้นฟูทางด้านจิตใจการกลับเข้าสู่สังคมในการทำงานหรือการศึกษานะครับแล้วก็การฟื้นฟูทางด้านโครงสร้างพื้นฐานแล้วก็ประเด็นที่5เกี่ยวกับเรื่องของการทำงานร่วมกับสหวิชาชีพนะครับในส่วนนี้ก็แน่นอนว่าเราต้องการความร่วมมือจากหลากหลายภาคส่วนไม่ว่าจะเป็นในส่วนของทีมแพทย์ทีม Disaster Manager แล้วก็รวมถึงกู้ชีพนะครับแล้วก็หน่วยปฏิบัติการการแพทย์ฉุกเฉินทีมดับเพลิงหรือนักจิตวิทยาที่จะเข้ามาเยียวยาทางด้านจิตใจนะครับแล้วก็อาจจะมีการฝึกอบรมการซ้อมแผนแล้วก็การจัดการกับความเสี่ยงร่วมกันนะครับจำเป็นอย่างยิ่งเลยที่ว่าจะต้องมีแผนรับมือภัยพิบัติทั้งในระดับของประเทศแล้วก็ในระดับของพื้นที่นะครับสุดท้ายก็คือเรื่องของบทเรียนที่ได้รับนะครับหรือสิ่งที่ได้เรียนรู้ก็คืออาจจะวิเคราะห์ข้อดีข้อบกพร่องจากเหตุการณ์ที่ผ่านมานะครับอาจจะเป็นในเรื่องของประเด็นการสื่อสารที่ล่าช้าการขาดแคลนทรัพยากรหรือการตอบสนองที่ล่าช้านะครับหรือว่าอาจจะมีการจัดทำในส่วนของFirst Aid Kit เพื่อเตรียมความพร้อมเอาไว้นะครับถ้ามีกรณีฉุกเฉินเราก็สามารถที่จะมาให้การดูแลได้นะครับแล้วก็เรื่องของการเรียนรู้เกี่ยวกับการอาจจะเปิดปิดแก๊สในระหว่างที่เกิดเหตุนะครับการเรื่องของเปิดปิดน้ำและอุปกรณ์อื่นๆนะครับที่สำคัญเลยที่ Professor ได้ฝากไว้ก็คือเรื่องของ drop cover แล้วก็ hold on นะครับก็อย่างเช่นเราก็มาสรุปกันเป็นไทยได้ว่าก้มคลุมแล้วก็เกาะนะครับเดี๋ยวทางผู้จัดทางคณะพยาบาลศาสตร์มหาวิทยาลัยทักษิณเราก็จะมีในส่วนของวิดีโอให้กับทุกท่านได้ชมนะครับ
We would like to show how to survive when we have the earthquake occur, drop, cover, and hold on in Thai version. I hope you will use our guides for practice when the earthquake occur, and we will practice for the future how to use drop, cover, and hold on for Thai people. Okay. At the end of this seminar, on behalf of the faculty of nursing Thaksin University, we would like to express our deepest gratitude to Professor Emeritus Dr. Joanne Langan for her insight and inspiring and thought-provoking presentation. Your insight, disaster preparedness, and interdisciplinary coordination have truly enriched our understanding and will undoubtedly guide future effort in disaster response, especially concern earthquake. As we come to the end of today's enlightening seminar, I would like to extend our heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you for your active participation and engagement throughout the section. And thank you, Dr. Langan, again, and I will keep in touch and ask you to become our researcher in our group, disaster group at Thaksin University.
And good luck to you. Good luck to all. And please be safe. Take care of yourselves.
Have a wonderful day and good night to everyone. And we are looking for the next seminar again. Thank you. Bye bye and good night.
Bye. Good night.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.